The Scene projects are brought to you by these fine sponsors. J. Rick Music in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Dirty Dog Production, connecting the Black Hills and beyond through music. And DBS Entertainment. We want to thank our sponsors and each one of you, our listeners, for making yourself part of the Scene projects. Welcome into another exciting episode of The Scene. I'm joined by Joel from the Barstool Prophets. How you doing, Joel?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm well. I'm glad to get you on the show.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
I didn't think about the name, also maybe spelling out profession. So when we talked about doing an interview at 9 a.m., you're like, ooh, rough. So we're going to afternoon edition here. I love it.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Cool, man. Well, why don't you, for all of our listeners and myself included, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and, a little bit about the Barstool Prophets?
Yeah, right on. I've been, kind of a gigging musician like my whole adult life, past 20 some years. Been since I was about 19. I've been kind of getting picked up by bands to play guitar, but literally played in almost every U.S. state, been on a few records, and had a lot of local bands here in Aberdeen or Minneapolis, Chicago, a couple different places I've lived. And about 8 years ago, a buddy of mine, that long time buddy of mine, and I was like, man, I'm writing these songs, and he's writing these songs, and it's like let's find a place, let's find a home for these things. And so we created the Barstool Prophets with the kind of the intention of like giving a voice to like this part of the country as we see it, kind of our view of, the upper Midwest, living in the plains, making your own fun. Sometimes you got to build your own entertainment. Sometimes you spend way too much time at the bar, that kind of thing, the hard winters, the hot summers. That's kind of where we built this thing out of, just wanting to really build a voice for country music or left of the dial rock and roll, however you want to look at it from our perspective of the country.
Brother, it's a common theme. It's a common theme on that show. Representing the upper Midwest, representing what's home to us, especially when you talk about country music. And it's all, I call our style with Starts and Ends, my band, I call it modern gypsy rock.
There we go. I like that.
Trying to cover it, right? Where I'm trying to like give it umbrella that you might get it. I'm a little hippie. I'm a little country boy. I'm a little fucking hillbilly.
When people
we're
ask
a little
me
bit
to
everything.
Describe our music, they say, "What kind of music do you play?" And I would say, "Well, the good stuff." And then
Exactly.
if they push it, I'm like, "Well, if Waylon Jennings, the Rolling Stones, and the Replacements had a baby together, let's put it that way." That's about
funny.
the easiest way to put.
I describe it like this. You're gonna love this, Joel. Classic country married classic Southern rock, and had a baby in the grunge area. Then that kid started growing up listening to hip hop and EDM, and we are that kid's playlist.
Oh boy.
Like that's what you're gonna get, and especially because, we run music in between our sets too, and then my wife is in there, and she's playing Salt and Peppa and Shania Twain, and always getting the ladies going. So nice to have a female DJ in the crew for us. And yeah,
absolutely.
Man. Yeah, it sounds like you're right up our alley. We're all kind of doing the same thing. I've interviewed probably 50 people at this point, right? All musicians, all in the upper Midwest here, and it's the same story.
It's a common theme.
Themes. Yeah, man, it's a common theme.
I mean, it's when you come from a quote unquote flyover state, there comes a point. I've like I said, I've kind of traveled the country, and it's a wonderful country. It's a big country, and every part of it is different. The way that people live is different in every part of the country. You can see so much just by driving around the United States of America. I mean, there's different, just people grow up differently. They have different educations, different backgrounds, different economies, different sorts of industry. And one thing that I just don't see, enough of is people like kind of telling the story of where they're from. I mean, you hear it from certain areas, but you don't hear it from everywhere, and we have such a big, diverse country. Let's all tell our stories. It's a fascinating story. Let's all tell it.
Yep. And that's really what this podcast has become, is capturing not just the songs. We have our show Love Noise where we feature the music, but also the stories behind those songs and the stories about who we are. Right now, it's all getting to know you episodes, right? We don't know anybody, but as this continues to evolve, there's going to be conversations that we want recorded about your album and going in depth on the album and on the songs. And, it becomes different relationships as we all kind of move down the wormhole together. Right. And we keep chasing this thing. This podcast is less than 2 months old.
Oh, wow,
our first
wow.
episode was March 28th, brother. This thing is a barely a thought. Right. But we've got 50 interviews down. We're going to daily episodes because I'm just grabbing so much content, and I'm not just going to kick them down the road a month. No, these people want to talk about this stuff
That's
now.
awesome.
No, because there's more conversations to be had, man. Hit record and let's go.
Yeah.
So you're kind of
Get it,
getting
Bubba.
me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, you're getting me off track of you, though. It's supposed to be about you and getting to know you a little bit. So, what kind of sparked your musical interest? I mean, you've been playing your whole life. Was there music in the house growing up, or?
Honestly, my dad, when he was younger, he was a musician. I got musical uncles and stuff like that, but they kind of all put it aside. They were all part of that. Kind of a big Jesus movement. So honestly, and I love my parents. I don't, nothing bad to say about them. They raised me right and everything, but it really comes from not having access to me. We weren't allowed to listen to the radio. We were only allowed to listen to very specific Christian music growing up and stuff like that. So it might be kind of a rebellion, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and
I got into, and I
you
was
might be from a different generation too, though. How old are you, Joel?
I was born in 1638, so I don't know how good your math is, but I just
not
turned
very good.
Cool. Yeah.
I'll give you 400. Are you 400 years old?
Just shy of that. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
Don't go away to me.
It just kind of just dates the generation that your parents were from too. I mean, that's how the 60s happened, right? That's how the 60s and 70s happened, was because you had all these kids, and a lot more kids than there was parents too. But, you tried this real, an iron fist, right? In the 50s, all these, dads coming home from war. And you've just seen how the tighter you constrict things, the more it kind of explodes out of control after a time, right? So not surprising.
And it was the carryover. So my parents were they were products of that, maybe, a generation later or whatever. But,
right.
It kind of, it all carries on. And at some point you got to break the chain. And that's kind of what happened when I started playing music. I really started playing because I grew up reading a lot, and I always wanted to be an author. And I realized I did not have the patience for it. So I could write a great story in about, a 4-minute section. I can't write a novel. But my dad, he, as I was growing up and started, picking up music and stuff in my in my teens, it wasn't until my teens I actually started picking up an instrument. And he saw how much fun. He was like, "Oh, that looks like fun." So him and my uncles all got back together and started playing music again. And I ended up playing for almost a decade in a blues band with my dad and one of my uncles, just because, hey, everybody's back on the wagon. Let's all go play music together. And it's pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. So you brought it back. So you deprived a little bit, early childhood. You find it anyway, and it kind of re-sparks it in your dad and his brothers. And man, that's cool. That's a neat story to kind of bring that back. And now it's been something that's been a big part of your life for, 400 years. So it's amazing that, you've had the longevity in your career that you've had. I'm really impressed by that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
But now you're living up in Aberdeen, South Dakota.
Yes, sir.
You guys are doing some big things up there. You just dropped an album back in January called Damn the Wind. Boy, if that ain't absolutely. South Dakota.
Right. We dropped that album, and we try to do as much stuff. We try to keep as much in South Dakota as we can, from our graphic design to recording and everything. So sometimes, limited resources, limited musician pool and talent pool to pull from, just because it's sparsely populated up here.
Yeah, brother, I feel you.
But we try to do as much as we can. So we recorded it um, here in South Dakota. We used as much local photographers, much local screen printers for the shirts. As much as we possibly can. We do everything kind of. We got friends that are artists. And it's like, hey, we'll give you some money if you can. Come. I got this idea in my head. I suck at drawing. Draw this up for me. I'll give you $100. That kind of thing.
Right.
That's kind of how we get things done. And they'll only get you so far, but hey, do it while you can, right? Make sure everybody's voice is heard.
Right. Well, and supporting the scene. I mean, we're always supporting local artists here and other local musicians, and producing a lot more shows and doing a lot more content for everyone else than we're doing for ourselves at this point, which just feels more natural, right? I mean, obviously the scene goes out and we're growing our podcast. My hope is that it eventually becomes its own thing and it's out there. I'm very good at starting things, right? And maybe that comes from the name. I don't know.
It might be the name. Yeah.
It might have something to do with it. I'm not the one to ends, I guess. That is not my job, but I got a lot of great ideas that could turn into something with the right amount. I think anything has potential given the right amount of, some good nutrients, some good soil to grow in, right? A lot of sunlight, a little bit of water. I think anything.
Sometimes it just takes a Bubba to start something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, and that's absolutely what we're doing. The podcast evolved from me like, oh man, somebody should really be doing this and there should be more of this. And then sitting back and going, why the fuck don't you do this, Bubba? What are you like? Why are you talking about it? Just do it. Just go do it. And yeah, now here we are a couple months later and I'm already in all the places where the musicians are. So to go and batch content, not different from what we did at the Midwest Country Music Organization Awards in Okoboji last month, in April. Yeah. Was to sit down and interview as many people as possible, right? They had jam night. We did 20 interviews that night. I don't mind sitting down and spending 5 minutes with anybody. So Four Winds Fest coming out, Rapid City's coming up in June. We're going out there. I'll sit down with the microphones while I'm not performing, and I'll be interviewing as many people as I can and batching that content and then releasing it on the backside, right?
That's awesome.
I'm hosting the Songwriter Nights and recording them live every Thursday at Monk's Ale House in Sioux Falls, and we're posting those on Saturdays. We're just hitting record on everything, right? Just record it all. I'm going to post it and drive the excitement of people hearing actually this is the party. Like, come be a part of this, right? Like, don't just sit on the sidelines and see it on Facebook after the fact. Like, here it is, where we're at, and pop a couple of big parties during the year as well. Speaking of big parties, you guys got a big one coming up June 13th.
June 13th, yeah.
Heatbox. Cool. Mark Joseph Heatbox, coming to town. Where are you guys at?
Like the old heads, man. The old heads when it comes to the jam bands. I mean, Mark Joseph, I remember when I was, just a kid, like running sound for some of his bands, and he's been Big Woo and all that kind of stuff, and Heatbox, been all over the place, It's a big draw up here in Aberdeen anyways. Those the jam band kids don't go away. Like, the punk scene went away. The hip hop scene comes and goes, but up here, like the jam kids, man, they're still into that stuff. It's crazy.
Man. Well, and how cool for you guys to get featured in with that crowd and be accepted by the jam community. We're kind of riding that line, right? Where I try to be in the mainstream as much as possible, but my toes. There's 3 Grateful Dead songs in my set list every single night, like just by proxy. That's the music I grew up playing. Those are the songs that I first learned. I'm not leaving them alone because you don't know who the Grateful Dead is. I don't care. I'm playing Deep Ellum Blues.
For me, it was the Allman Brothers.
Right, and those bands played together, man. It's the same music, right? Like it's when you get down to it, it was all blues, it was all country, Americana, and rock music came out of that. And before it got commercialized, rock music was a lot different. Early 70s rock, all those great classic albums. And then you move through the 80s and man, they they're doing the same thing to Nashville right now. You're making it a commodity and you're cranking it out, and you got people that can do it, and they'll suck that tit dry too, and they'll fucking move on to the next thing, man. I just,
Yeah.
and that's
It's the
why
difference between artist and entertainer. I mean,
they've
and both have their place, but
right.
you gotta give enough space for both of them to exist.
Well, and I think that a lot, a scene like Nashville sucks a lot of artists dry to feed a few of those, it sucks these songwriters dry to feed these few artists and these big capital, gains they're trying to make, and it is what it is. And I think we're so tired of it, and the internet has given us all a shot to where most people don't even have that dream anymore. We're also disillusioned with the music business. We're not making any money on Spotify. We're not doing anything. So it's just like, hey, you know what, you'll let us put up there, cool, but I'm not going to spend any money on driving people to your platform. I don't even care, right? And what's happening now is crazy. So like, I went on my Spotify for artists the other day, and we don't really drive any traffic to our stuff or anything. And yeah, all of a sudden I got 1,200 plays in Finland. And it was like, oh snap,
Nice.
We got 100 and some monthly listeners now from, 12 the month before. And like, okay, that's cool.
And from a bunch of people that good luck pronouncing their name.
Right. Yeah. And the metrics that they give, while they're cool to me as a vanity metric, I don't care at all. I don't care how popular they say I am. I know the impact I'm having in my local community. It's visible. It's tangible, right? What we're doing here. If those waves start to reverberate out through this, the algorithm or whatever, cool. If not, I don't really care, because it's not going to change my life, right? It might give me more money, might give me more opportunity to do some more stuff that I like to do, but I'm not moving. I'm not.
Well, that's really what it is. It's being able to, especially like I said, being in the area that we're in is opening up those opportunities to start the conversation somewhere else, and that's a cool thing. That's really where it all exists. That's where art exists is it's a form of communication when you can be in the middle of South Dakota and start a conversation in Finland all of a sudden. That's a cool thing,
Yeah, I love it. I love the advantages of the internet, the opportunities that it afford. It's great. It's just, and I guess what I'm saying is that some artists, and especially young artists, wrap up so much of what they're doing into, I got to be big on Spotify and I got to release all this music. And then they end up putting out an inferior product for years and years and years, and they never get anywhere. And then they're like, gosh, why didn't I get anywhere? And it's like, well, because you never connected with anyone. And you never.
At the end of the
went
day,
out
that's really where it's at.
Right, right.
It's that connection.
Well, and it's hard to find, and it drives some artists, I'm sure, to madness, right? That they can't connect with people and getting depressed because you don't have the likes or, whatever you think you should be getting. And it takes you away from, like, if you were just playing in a coffee shop and there was one person that just loved your music and sat there all night and listened to it, you would appreciate that person.
Yeah.
Or we're not appreciating the small contacts that we have, online. It only got 20 people to like it.
I get depressed if I don't get on the road often enough.
Right. Well, if you don't see your friends, if you don't get that oxytocin from seeing your people,
Yeah, get out there and meeting new people and
right.
Again, finding that one person in the room that gets it, that understands the conversation. I love that more than anything in the world. I mean, I love my windshield time. I love being on the road 100% because of that kind of thing. You're driving, sometimes up to, 11, 12 hours in a day just to go and have a conversation with, one lonely stranger in a room. And that's, to me, that's 100% worth it. 100%.
Yep. Yeah, I spent a lot of time behind the windshield. So most of our work is obviously coming in the Sioux Falls area, but I live 90 minutes outside of town,
Yeah.
So a lot of time spent listening to other podcasts, reviewing old episodes of this one as well, and revisiting those conversations. And it's amazing, this archive that we're building with the show. And it's just been a lot of fun for me. It's so easy, right? Turn on the phone and talk music. That's all we talk about anyway.
That's cool.
Yeah, man.
And Bubba, we're not that far away. Like we're an easy drive. If you ever want to do you know, like a live podcast, we come down and do
Yeah.
one with you
Well, hell yeah. Come down
just
here
for the
and play
hell of
some
it, you know.
shows, man. Oh, we got shows down here. Come on down and play, and we'll come up there and play. And that's where this whole thing is leading. We got friends in Minneapolis now that we're trading shows with and bringing them out. And I'm headed out to the Black Hills Memorial Day weekend to play some shows out there. That's where my home is. So just connecting all the dots, man. It's a really cool time to be in the scene, especially out here, and not just in South Dakota, but to see that it's the whole upper Midwest, right? I talk about the Midwest Country Music Organization on this show a lot. We just had a big Zoom meeting last night talking about the future of that organization, and I'm a new member, right? But I think I bring some fresh ideas to the table for them, and a fresh new market and a take on how to build these shows, right? And kind of
Yeah.
take the power away from the venue a little bit, but also give them the value of not having to pay for live music anymore. I'm tired of being told that I'm going to play a 4-hour show. I'm tired of being told this is the music that I'm going to play and this is what I'm going to do. Is like, you know what? We're the ones bringing the people here anyway. I'm going to tell you how it's going to be, and we'll come in here for free. But also when it hits, you're going to be spending your money on my podcast to make sure that people remember your name and that I come back here the next time, right? So I'm taking all the onus on myself to just go out and prove it. And that's what we're in prove it mode right now. We have a bunch of big things booked, a bunch of ideas that are planted right now. And it's a matter of just going out and water them and making sure that they sprout. And if they sprout, then they just need to be nurtured, right? And I think the nurturing part becomes easier once the idea is there, right? So yeah, that's where I'm at, is just grinding as hard as I can, keep doing podcast episodes, keep having more conversations, and yeah, keep this thing growing.
That's awesome, dude. I like it.
Yeah. So what's next for you guys?
Well, we're just right now we're our biggest obstacle, and I think you can probably relate to this, is routing. Let's talk about routing for a minute. Can we talk about
Yeah.
routing?
Yeah. Well, and that's,
For those musicians out there that want to be on the road and have been on the road a little bit and are trying to, the routing thing is insane right now. After it was kind of leading up to the whole COVID shutdown, but afterwards, I mean, everything in the industry has changed so much because the entertainment industry got hit the hardest. Obviously, venues closing, and they can't have people in them, so they change closing and changing hands and stuff like that. So trying to get we get a call from a bar in Helena, Montana. That's 14-hour drive from here. Yeah, we want to go do that. Absolutely. Now, how do we connect the dots? We're not going to drive 14 hours for, one gig, right? How do you connect the dots? How do you put, all those shows in place? And that's kind of our biggest obstacle right now is, you know, is good booking, good routing, so that we can, go out and get as far away as possible. But, you got to play your way there and you got to play your way back.
Well, the problem is between you and everything else in the world, there's nothing. So your first problem is the location of Aberdeen, South Dakota.
Yeah, and the fact that we're not really a part of a scene either, that
right.
kind of,
well,
so it's not, you can't reference.
Now.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it's not an immediate scene where you can just reference. Hey, this buddy of mine and whatever.
And Joel, you hit on something. You hit on something
that
we're trying to do is to have more of a physical representation of it. I know we're growing our Facebook group as well, which is kind of meant to serve that purpose too, but that area where people can jump in and say, hey, I'm in this area, and everybody's already kind of in there and participating, right? And that's the problem, is that everybody's on Facebook, but how many people are really participating in it and helping you grow, right? Or sharing it and, or not just scrolling right by all your stuff and not really caring. So while everyone is there, it's how do you maximize the people that you do have those connections with, and really forming street team out of all the big fans early on here. So Yeah, it's routing is a big thing. We're down here. We're trying to connect the dots in Sioux Falls, Mitchell, Yankton, to try and help touring bands with that specifically to help South Dakota bands to get that, to be that one extra step maybe to get to Omaha or to get to Minneapolis or to get up north to Fargo, right? If you're coming from the Black Hills, right? It's a long trip and you're going to have to come one way or the other for you. I know, Williston's got some stuff way out there, and if you're heading to Montana, that's got to be the only place really in between you and there. Lemon, South Dakota Lemon, South Dakota's got a little venue that some friends of ours are in, so maybe we'll hook you up with them. But yeah, it's connecting all those little map dots, right?
It really is
making sure that people know where it's at. And you bring up a good point, Joel.
Everybody's got to make a living at the end of the day. You want to make art.
Well, but to make a database, right?
You have to
have a database to work off of would be cool for the Upper Midwest and venues that we know are good. And then it's something that I'm actually building with the Midwest CMO that we're working on for South Dakota, right? And they kind of have some, a database for an Iowa and Minnesota too. So I think you're hitting on something that's kind of in the works, just not out in the open yet. So I appreciate you refreshing the Akashic memory there and shaking it up.
And I'm glad to share all of anybody that puts on shows in Aberdeen. I'm glad to share that with you for that database. Let's do this. Let's connect those dots for everybody.
Yeah, man.
That's
I think
a good idea.
You guys got a school up there. You got some shows and things going on. There's no reason that our bands can't be coming up there and playing. And I know that the Haffey meeting was up there last year and has been traditionally. That's the Heartland Association of Fairs, Festivals, and Events.
I think this year they do it in Bismarck.
Are they changing this year?
This year, well, they kind of go back and forth. So this year it will be in Bismarck, is from
nice.
What I've been told.
Well, yeah, I'm a new member of that one as well, so I'll be up there and kind of hobnobbing and rubbing elbows and all that good stuff, man. Well, Joel, I appreciate you jumping on the show, man. It's been a good convo, and I think we're gonna have some real life things happening here real soon.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. It's a pleasure. Barstool Prophets, Spotify, on everything, YouTube, all that stuff.
Even Napster.
Ooh, look at that.
I didn't even know it still existed, but
right. I think MySpace is technically still out there somewhere.
Is it really?
Somewhere.
Okay, well, we'll get on there too then.
It's like Pluto.
Yeah.
It's out there. All right, Joel, I appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks, Bubba. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Join the Scene Projects on all your social media channels. And find us on Spotify. 3 episodes releasing weekly and more content on our Patreon channel. Patreon.com/The Scene Project.